Let's stay in week 2, September 7th, and we move to a different Big Ten game, this one in the non-conference as well, Colorado at Nebraska. That's my third game shaping the college football season. This one's really important for the Big 12, namely because we're questioning right now in the new iteration of this playoff with the power of the SEC and the Big Ten, is there going to be room for a second team out of the Big 12 in the playoff? Is there going to be room for a second ACC team in the playoff? I'm not sure. Games like this will go a long way in shaping what we think about who's included in the playoff and what conference they play in. Colorado, Nebraska, it's really important for the Big 12, in particular because they need those types of head-to-head matchup victories, just like the ACC will need when they face teams out of the SEC. This is going to be a night game in Lincoln. NBC's got the call. If Colorado wins, then we're right back in this scenario that we were early last season, and it might have even more staying power, to be honest with you. Last year, Colorado early in the season, tough to beat. They were healthy. The depth issues were not showing up yet. Travis Hunter hadn't gotten hurt yet, and they were tough to beat. If they protect Shedeur Sanders, they're really good. He's a heck of a player. This is the old school rivalry that I grew up on, by the way. You know, I grew up in Colorado. Like, this is the game that I dreamt of every single year. This is the game that I dreamt of playing in when I went to Colorado. So, like, everything about this game is awesome for me, and it's going to shape the season. If Colorado wins, all of a sudden, we're right back into Deion mania, just like we were a year ago. It's prime time all over again. If Nebraska wins, that's a very different type of shaping. Let me just take you into a Nebraska win. That would be their toughest test, I think, by a substantial margin, on the way to being 7-0, heading in to play Ohio State and Columbus later in the year. That would be a game in October. If you look at their first 4 games, they're all at home. UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois. Then their next 3 are at Purdue, home against Rutgers, and at Indiana. They beat Colorado. There's a real likelihood that they're 7-0. Remember, this team was much better than their record indicated. This team was decimated by both injuries and turnovers, and those turnovers specifically showed up from the quarterback position. What happens if Raiola, their freshman quarterback, comes out and plays really well, in particular early, and beats Colorado at night, at home, with that fan base? You're talking about shaping the college football season. All of a sudden, the Big Ten now starts to think, boy, we've got 6 legitimate teams that could be in the hunt. And by the way, even after a potential loss to Ohio State, let's just say they go to Ohio State and lose, they could be 8-1 when the first playoff rankings come out because they play UCLA at home after Ohio State. So that's why this game against Colorado is so important. We're either going to plunge headlong into primetime mania again, Coach Prime mania, or Nebraska is going to be for real. So that game is highly interesting and a game that will definitely shape the season. Let's move on. Okay, week 5. Let's go all the way to week 5. So we skip a couple of weeks. September 28th. Huge one out of the SEC, Georgia at Alabama. And we get to find out everything we need to know about the new Alabama. Georgia is going to be either number 1 or number 2. I would probably suspect number 1 in the preseason. They're going to be facing Alabama for the first time since, obviously, Bama ended that 29-game winning streak in last year's SEC championship game. Knocked the Dogs out of the playoff, by the way. I know that Bama won their last meeting, but Georgia has won the more recent national championships, and the legend has stepped down. So this is no longer Kirby Smart as the protege against the master, Nick Saban. This is a Saban-less Alabama program. That's why this game is so interesting. I would argue that the new standard in college football, even with Michigan as the defending national champion, is Georgia. They're the program that is still intact as far as a program that is a recent national champion winner, a recent 29-game win streak. They're a few snaps away from being back in the playoff and going for a three-peat, right? Like, we know how Kirby has recruited. Kirby, at this point, I think it's safe to say, is the standard in college football. So now all of a sudden, it's no longer Georgia trying to measure up, take down Alabama, the protege reaching after and trying to beat his mentor. It's in some ways the opposite, even though Kalen DeBoer is not the mentee in this case. Alabama will be measuring themselves against Georgia now. That's why this game is so important and impactful and will shape not only the season, but all of college football. It will shape exactly what we think of the sport in terms of who holds the standard in the sport. This is a huge test for Kalen DeBoer in the post-Saban era. That fan base is going to be expecting them to be competitive in this game, obviously. Now, it pays that it's at home. And listen, Kalen DeBoer is a hell of a coach. If he went to anywhere except for Alabama, I'd be like, that's a home run. But Kalen DeBoer went to a place where he is replacing the best, greatest in history college football coach that we've ever seen. That's a tall task. It's a tall task. You talk about shaping college football, not just the playoff race, not just the SEC race, but also the overarching sport. Who holds the standard? That's on the line in that game. Week 6, October 5th. Let's go to the ACC. Clemson at Florida State. The ACC is going to be fighting for a second playoff spot, just like the Big 12 is. And the winner of this game likely puts themselves in a firm, I would say, seat, path, control of a berth in the ACC championship game. It gives them some cushion as it relates to playing for that conference title, which then would get them the automatic berth into the college football playoff. I do not think that the Big 12 and the ACC, should rely on, hey, we think we're going to get 2. They can't rely on that. You've got to get into the game. So that's why this game will shape the season so dramatically, is because the winner of Clemson, Florida State, I believe, will have a firm hold on a berth in the game that could potentially put them into the college football playoff. So this game is absolutely impactful when it comes to shaping the season, shaping the conferences, and shaping exactly what this playoff is going to look like. Florida State beat Clemson last year, finally knocking them off, by the way, after losing 7 straight. Would a second straight win over Clemson make FSU the new leaders in the ACC? I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what to expect out of Clemson, but the winner of this game is certainly in control of that conference. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.